Hey guys, let's work on the animation of my little robot. So we're going to be animating him the following way. We're going to move this guy. This is our main mover. This dude. Let's make this guy smaller here, just so that we can tell that that's our inside and this is our outside one. So this is our cabin global. And let's keyframe him here. And let's go to frame, say, I don't know, just do a couple for now, like, I don't know, 60. And move him, you'll see his feet disconnect, and we just move him over here. And we press keyframe. And now when he moves, you'll see him moving through. So what we need to do now is we need to make the legs move with him. And doing that is relatively simple. What we do is we grab this leg here, we click on the little blue circle, we keyframe its position, then we move forward about to say here, and we move the leg forward, and we keyframe the position. And we grab this leg, keyframe its position here, because if you forget to keyframe it on the same leg as you have here, you'll get the wrong kind of sliding. And we keyframe its position. Let's say we've got 15 frames, right? But it's good to have the numbers here, but since this movement here, if we go to our timeline and press space, cabin global and age to frame all, it's not linear. These 15s aren't really going to be that important. We just have to eye it for the moment. So now let's move until about here, and let's move this guy forward. No, now let's move it a bit further. Let's move him like here. Yeah. Let's move this guy forward. And keyframe. Select the blue one. Keyframe. Let's again move him forward to about here, I think. And let's move this leg forward and add a keyframe. And then select this leg and add a keyframe. Also, remember, like before you drag the slider forward, keyframe this leg in this position because we want it to be stuck there. So then we move the guy forward and we can move the leg here and press keyframe, and then select this guy and keyframe, and then just a couple of frames forward and moving forward first and keyframe. And now when we scroll back through this, you'll see him doing the whole kind of, snow ski shuffle. So yeah, that's a sliding robot. Now you'll want to make him actually lift the legs. So let's get this blue leg. Let's do this leg first and go. So this is where it moves. So in between these two frames here, we want to move it up just a bit and keyframe. And then it stays still, and then it moves. And then in the middle, let's move it up and keyframe. And then it stays still, and then there's a little bit of move here. So keyframe. And now we have this leg actually moving. Nice, right? Okay, let's do the same thing for the other pink leg. So it's standing still, and then here it moves. Let's keyframe this. And then here it stays still, and then here it moves. And let's keyframe him up here. Okay, and now we have our robot walking inside a ground plane. Maybe add a light. So we can see him, and we can turn on options and shadows. And we have him shuffling along. Let's turn on this, just bring the shadows down a bit. There we go, and now we have our robot shuffling around. Obviously this isn't quite enough. You're going to want to play around. We're going to want to animate more of this. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to animate the cabin actually bobbing up and down. So let's select this yellow thing and let's keyframe the position here. And let's move over to the longest, when the legs are the furthest apart, so this position, you want the guy to be a bit lower. And when they're crossing, you should raise the body, because that's how you make a step if you look at people walking. Maybe this is too low. Maybe we should bring them up a bit. And then here, when he makes that first step, we should make him raise. So he makes the step, and here he's going to go a bit down. So at this point again, we want him to be higher up, and then as he's on both of these, we can lower him down a bit, and as the legs cross, we can raise him up again, and as they're further away, we scroll them down again. And now, there you go, now we have him bobbing up and down as he should be bobbing. At the beginning here, I don't like this bob, so I think this one is a bit too high up. Let's move him down a bit, keyframe that. And obviously if you want, we can add more stuff to it. First let's add another light, because this lack of lights is kind of starting to bug me. And let's go filter and turn off lights so they don't get in the way. So we have our little robot walking, pretty nifty, right? And as you can see, because this guy, see the problem is with this frame, actually I'll show you how to, if you notice right now when I click on stuff, it selects all kinds of stuff, which is stuff we don't want to be selected. So I'm going to show you how to use layers here. Right now I added a floor, and if I try to select the leg, it doesn't, it lets me, but it's more difficult. So what I like to do when I work is I go to layers, and I double click and make this scenery, and I plug in my plane and my lights into it, and I can make another one and call this mesh, and put all the geometry in there. I get this geometry and hold the control key, so there's a little plus icon there, and drop it all in there. And then everything underneath will go in there as well. And you probably want all these legs and stuff in there as well. So let's go find where, there we go. So this is our foot mesh. So let's drag this guy into mesh as well while holding the control key. And here as well, let's go put our leg lower into mesh and leg upper into mesh, but don't hold the control because we don't want the joints underneath to go there. Actually, no, yeah, this all can go in there because we have controllers. See, let's just put the whole leg in there. And the whole leg one. And all that we don't need in that is this little blue guy. Okay, let's go to layers and let's lock out scenery. So now we can't select it. Now we got a little blue guy selected. The blue guy is in here somewhere, so it's our foot guy, yeah. So this is the only one we need basically deselect. So we just click here and we go remove from layer. And we have foot. Where's our? This is our foot. There you go, it's our foot null. Just check if it's our, yeah, it's our pink one, there it is. So layer and remove from layer. And now we can lock this layer as well. And now we can only select, oh wait, yeah. We can only select the nulls. So we can't select anything that's not a controller. Yeah, so it makes animating a bit easier. So going back to where I was, we were making the walking. Yeah, let's open our timeline. So window, timeline. As you can see, our cabin just moves in a straight line, but our foot, if we press our foot and H key, going on, foot. Oh, okay, it's, oh, these layers have been, okay, so that's just sometimes the problem with using the lock thing. It sometimes locks your positions and scale. So also scale, it automatically keyframes, so we can just hit delete on that. We don't need that. And here also delete the scale. Now all we want to do is we want to just click and drag this gray box down to the yellow boxes and get rid of this because we don't need the layers. And now we can lock the yellow again. So there you go. Now as you can see, the foot, actually you see it moving, which is nice, but it makes adjusting it rather difficult. Like if you want to, for example, adjust how far up it goes, you have to adjust this one, and it's, you know, it's a movement through space, which makes adjusting a bit more difficult. Whereas with the cabin, we have our cabin local, which doesn't care where it moves. Like we can adjust how much it bounces up, and then we can change the way the global cabin moves, and the movement will propagate through. So for example, here the cabin, it's trying to figure out how to fit all this into one small screen. If we, for example, move up to here, and this bob up and down, here we go cabin local and position Y. We can move this guy up so he jumps, so he moves, so he, you know, his cabin moves higher as he steps. And also, you know, here we can move this guy up if we want. And I think here we're missing a keyframe. No, that's the lower one, it's the upper one. And if we press H, once again, we can see the whole movement. And this is a very convenient way to adjust. You know, if you want to if you want to exaggerate everything, you can just drag this guy up, this little green line here, and this green line here. And now he's going to be doing, like, you know, a big bulb with every step. I also add a bit of rotation, just a tiny bit. So let's select this local one again. And when we move here, like on this move, it's horizontal, but here, I like to maybe rotate it a tiny bit so it's keyframed that way. You can also keyframe with the F9 key. You don't need to click here every time. I have the F9 key mapped onto my mouse, so I'm always, when I keyframe stuff. And then we move here, it's parallel, and here we want the rotation to be a bit sideways again. Keyframe, then parallel, and in. So here, again, we want it to be rotated a bit that way up. So now when we animate, now when this guy moves, you'll see he's also turning his head a bit. And yeah, that's kind of the objective of this. So there you have it. You have the animated walking robot. You can also, you know, if you want, when this guy moves, you can also, for example, when a human leg moves, it kind of rotates a bit forward. So we can add that kind of movement to it. So see, it's a bit more natural. And let's do it again here as well. We can keyframe that. And it's all about the tiny details, really. Like when something moves, see, this is a lot more natural when it moves. You know, he lifts up from the back and then he kind of pushes his toe forward. And we can do the same thing with this one. So when he lifts it up, so here. And it's always small things that really make an animation more pleasant to watch. Like you want to really pay attention to all the small details of how things move. It really helps to look at references, like of people, animals. You know, it doesn't really matter if you have a pet, watch your pet. Also, you want to we can add some rotation. For example, let's say when we're here, let's get our local null, and we can also rotate it a bit this way. Keyframe, oops. Make sure this thing is on the same frame. So we can rotate it a bit this way. And then keyframe that. And then when it's here, we can rotate it the other way. And now it's more of like there's more as, you know, slight movements which make it that more believable that he's actually, you know, stomping around. So yeah, and already we have this, it's not as robotic as it was before, it's more lively. And obviously, you know, you can sit and you can tweak and you can adjust it however much you want. You know, you can make the steps bigger or smaller. If you want, you can also animate these little blocks in the front. You know, just stick them as a controller or keyframe the actual blocks, and you can make him when he steps off. You can make the leg first kind of tilts forward while keeping this thing on the ground. It's a more advanced leg rig. It's a more advanced leg rig. But yeah, you can see the concept. You just have to, you know, it's important to first get the base motion down. Like, you have to block it in. You have to make the guy, you know, walk around for the right timing. And then after that, you just add little, you know, nuanced motions wherever you think they need to be. You know, and always look at reference. Always look at people walking. You know, get a mirror, look at yourself walking. It's, you know, if you can, you know, if you go to the park, watch people walking around, see how different people walk, and, you know, see which part of their foot raises first, and you can, you know, you can apply that to robots or anything else you want. So there it is. This is the walking robot. I would like at some points to raise maybe his legs a bit more. So let's say here, let's say I want this leg to raise more. Let's get our local guy. So on this frame, let's raise him up to give some more space for the leg and keyframe that. Maybe even rotate him a bit. And now this leg, here it is, this leg can afford to be much higher. So let's move this leg higher up. And now you can see he makes this, you know, big kind of, like as if it's heavy, just like. And let's do it here as well. So our local point, and on this one, let's raise our main body way up here. Let's rotate it a bit more. There we go, and let's keyframe that. Let's get our pink leg here. And on this frame, it's its frame, and let's raise it up. And maybe tilt it more. Like this. And let's add a keyframe. And now you'll see that our animation, it's like, you know, he's like stomping much higher than, it's not just shuffling, it's actually, you know, stomping movements. And then it kind of goes back to shuffling, but, you know, let's do that here as well. So let's get our leg in, find the frame that we're on. Let's move it up, rotate it so this leg doesn't disconnect. Keyframe this guy, get our blue frame here. Let's go to the frame it's at. And let's raise this leg as well. And keyframe that. There you go, and now we have some big steps. And even here, when he moves like this movement, you should really get this guy in. Let's see, so this is when it lands. Let's keyframe it. So we lock that position. And when the second one lands, we can lock that position as well. But in between, let's do a bit of a raise and a bit of a, let's move him up a bit. So now when he does the steps, actually, let's move this frame a bit further out. So he starts raising, and this you can click on the frame, so you can he starts raising here. So he steps, and then he kind of lifts and drags his leg in. So yeah, he's kind of a bit more of a jolly robot with a bit more of a bounce there in his step. And yeah, that's the concept of animating a little two-legged robot walking. So again, this leg really needs to raise here. So let's just do that quickly. Well, that's the same thing. Don't want to just go over it, but yeah, and that's how you adjust things. And then I'll always go into the timeline, and it's a lot easier to exaggerate movements. Like even this cabin, you know, if you pick it here, where's our cabin global and cabin local, and we got the position. So this is where, so even here, for example, I want to raise him. For some reason here, he's not raised. So let's just, you control, oops, No, let's turn that off, sorry. Yeah, so you can control click and drag, and there you go, and you have a rise. And you can, you can tweak these a lot easier, so you can find your keyframes. For example, here, if I think that he's rising too late, maybe we can move it back so you can rise up earlier. There you go, that looks a bit nicer. So he reaches the peak earlier, so let's move this peak back as well. Just a couple of frames. There you go, I think that looks much nicer. So yeah, this is how I go about animating a two-legged robot. Next part, let's set up some